Good evening YouTube, Ian here from Coolice Charge Case and Power Supplies. I hope you are well on this lovely dark, wet and windy UK evening actually. We're not having very good weather here in the UK, but hopefully with the summer approaching and a lighter nights on its way, we will soon start to get some better weather so we can all start to go flying again. Anyway, just a quick one, because hopefully this one is going to go out to its customer from tomorrow. I'm going to arrange the courier, I think. This charge case customer came to me. He's got a Thunder Power TP820CD, I think it is, off the top of my head. And he said to me, Ian, I'd like to put this into a case, along with a couple of balance boards, so that I can obviously take all my charging equipment in one case. So gave him a couple of options. The first one he liked obviously was the Max 505 orange case you see here, and you've been watching now for the last minute. I'm going to scan around to the side. So as per normal, I've got my AC inlet here, along with a 3D printed bezel. I wonder if I can bring the light over a bit. Yeah, so that looks nice and neat there. The eagle-eyed among you will obviously notice that there is 4 holes in the lid. I'm not going silly. I don't just drill holes in my case willy-nilly without having good reason to. One of the features that this case will have, but hasn't got currently, and I'll explain why in a minute, is one of my basic lid tidies with some of the Velcro straps and potentially elastic loops as well. I'm going to do a mix, I think, for this customer. But basically, my laser cutter cooling system decided to take a dump. In this case, one of the pipes popped off internally within the laser unit itself, so it spewed obviously all the mix of distilled water and RV antifreeze all within the bottom of the case, outside as well on the carpet floor in my office here. But in doing so, when the water pump then ran dry, it killed the pump. So that was the last thing to do, and I haven't got around to it. So hopefully if the customer lets me, I'm going to send this case out, and I've drilled the holes ready and waiting, so then once I've got the laser back up and running, I can obviously then just send in the upper lid tidy. If we come round to the side then as well, I've got the outputs there. I've got the 2 outputs. I've got an XT60 and an XT90. The XT60 is for a 12 volt out, and the XT90 is for 25 volt out. So back up, let's open it up. We've got 4 catches on this case, 1 on either side, and then the 2 at the front. And we've also got the, again, while the laser was working, I managed to get me obligatory legend plate done. So let's open it up. Excuse me. Right, and here you go. Here you can see the deck. Not too fancy on this one, although I'm quite pleased with the way this one turned out. Again, I've gone back to my roots, I'll say, with this one. The deck is 5mm clear acrylic cut on the laser. This was done 2 weeks ago before it decided it didn't want to play ball. And obviously into which then I created 3D printed brackets, which you'll potentially see in photos at the end, but I can show you one of the first ones actually. So I've got the first iteration I did. I created 3D printed brackets then, which obviously hold the charger in place. I took the moulded side panels off and obviously replaced them with kind of like one of these on either side. So the holes, I've got holes in there matching up then for the existing holes in the side of the case. It's also then sloped along the top, so the sloping face of the charger then is obviously parallel to the underside of the deck. These ones were the first ones I did, and they were to allow M5 screws to go through, but I changed them and obviously created cutouts in the holes there, so I could put the M5, sink the M5 nuts into it instead of just using nuts bolted on the bottom. I thought that would just save a little bit of time, so they're a spare set I've got on the side there in case I want to reuse them. That'll make the charger holding will make a little bit more sense later on in the video, because as normal, some build photos that I've obviously taken along the way, I'll stick them at the end of the video, and then you can obviously watch them. You'll also see my excellent ice meter up front by Steve Smith, XY Gax. He's designed that for me as normal. You know what that does. That's the protection circuit specifically for the iChargers. We developed that for, but some people obviously do request that for the additional features in the charge case and or added peace of mind when it comes to their other chargers. Balance boards, literally I've cut them into the deck. There is obviously the blind holes here that are tapped M3, and then obviously these boards then I took obviously the plastic casing off them, so it's just the bare PCB, and bolted them in place from the underside. Obviously, due to the thickness of the deck only being 5mm, I couldn't keep the obviously the balance ports hidden, if you like, so they are very ever so slightly just sitting proud of the deck if I run my finger over it, by about, I think, 1mm there, it feels like it. So I just cut out basic rectangular slots there to obviously allow those to poke through the deck, and surprisingly I'm quite pleased. Again, the overall look, it's turned out quite well, so I'm really pleased with the way it is. These were provided to me by the customer. He said, I've already got the balance boards. The only thing I had to do with them, apart from obviously take them apart, the connecting lead is obviously JST XH on this side, but then the charger uses a different JST connection, and I can't remember what designation it is off the top of my head, so I obviously had some extension leads, and it turns out I had the crimp on the right crimp connectors that I needed as well, so I just snipped the end off the other side and re-crimped my own connectors, and obviously did that on both sides. I did obviously mirror the balance board cutouts, so you can see they obviously switcheroo, basically keeps the wires then pointing towards the charger, and then of course then the main power wires as well. From memory, one of them, and I think it was the negative, was soldered on top of the PCB, and the main positive into the obviously connects to the XC60s in the middle there, was the negative was on top, the positive then was on the underside, which is perfect. So the negative wire then I unsoldered from the top, so then obviously it left me with a flat board to obviously then come up on the back of the deck, and then obviously resoldered it underneath, and that worked quite well. The other thing I was going to do, originally, obviously, I didn't necessarily want to hardwire these into the charger, so where I've taken obviously the side off the case, I then took the rest of the charger apart and soldered a little short fly lead onto each of the onto each of the face-mounted 4mm jack points, and then obviously then just came out and terminated them in female 4mm bullet connectors, so the bullet connectors then from these can just plug straight in. The reason behind that was, if something does happen with a board, effectively we can still buy these boards, so the customer would then be very easy then to undo the 4 screws, drop the balance board out, and obviously then swap it over with a new one. Again, with the thickness of the deck, I might have originally left the original charge ports hidden, and obviously then just done obviously a machined hole in the back of it. However, an idea then came to me, because obviously we're limiting ourselves to a certain degree with XT60 charge ports. I said to the customer, I said, I've had an idea, what if I cut the holes out in the deck so the existing charge connection points on the charger itself are visible, so that if you have an adapter you can then just plug that straight in as well. So effectively you could use an adapter with 4mm bullets at one end plugged into here, or the XT60s with the balance ports here, or the 4mm bullets with the balance ports here, and you've got a little bit of scope, if you want to call it that, to obviously allow you to do multiple battery types. Say someone comes along and says, oh, can I borrow your charger? I've got the adapter lead, 4mm bullets one end. You can say, yeah, sure, plug it into my charger, and there you go, and there's positive, negative, and away you go. And again, that worked out quite well. Thickness of the deck, again, it all comes down to the thickness. I couldn't use my usual brass M5 inserts, so I've gone for M5 screws through the deck, and obviously then I've tried to keep them all black as well, apart from the washers. Unfortunately, I'm yet to find black washers in order to try and avoid the carbon vinyl bunching up when you do the screw heads down on it, which I've had problems in the past. Someone suggested to me, was it Rob Bingham actually, in fact, why don't I look for a thin shim that sits behind the screw head, between obviously the carbon vinyl and the screw head, so that I think the idea is, as you then tighten it down, the screw head is slipping over the washer rather than slipping over the carbon vinyl, and it appears to work. So I've got very thin 0.03mm shims under the screws, so if they look like they're sitting proud a little bit, that's because they are, ever so like these ones. They are sitting ever so slightly proud, because there's a very minute shim under there just to try and help stop with the wrinkle with the vinyl, and touch wood, it works. Back to the top. Excuse me. We've got two fans, two radial fans, 75/30 radial fans again as normal. Instead of messing around with obviously doing mesh, the good thing about the laser is I've actually cut the air slots in it, and that's worked out quite well. Again, can't use the M5 inserts because like I would on the 10mm polypropylene decks that I normally use. So we've got screw holes going through, and then obviously I changed the 3D printed fan holders that I've got then to also include to hold the nuts in the back. So just to remove a little bit of work there. And again, on the other side, you notice obviously the screws are offset, but I didn't, obviously the fans suck in from the front on both of them, and if I wanted to keep the screw orientation the same, I would then have to turn that fan through 180 degrees, and it then wouldn't work sucking air from the back. It's pointless. So you can see the screws are slightly offset there. In the middle of it, flanked over side by the two fans, is obviously the USB charge port. This is one of the aluminium alloy ones with a quick charge free on it. Looks quite nice. First time I've actually used one myself. It looks very nice, and it actually has the little voltmeter in the top of it. The only thing I don't like about them, the little rubber boot is a little bit too stiff, so I think it will soften up over time, but it always wants to try and lift the back side of it up, but otherwise it looks nice and neat. So without further ado, because it's only a quick one, this one, if I flick the power supply, the ice meter should come into life, and as per normal, it's normally very difficult for me to try and catch the LCD on that, although it looks amazing when it's on. Oh, there we go. And obviously then, as per normal then, I've managed to put a strip of LED light in the back, which is again connected to the ice meter. So it'll glow green when it's connected. No output yet on the power supplies, but if I press the button, here she comes. Oh, and I've also turned it at the same time, so that's showing the internal temps. There we go. So we got 25.25 from the combined, 12.65 from the first power supply. If I keep rolling it. Temperature, that's the current temperature inside the case, 17.6, and obviously the temperature probe then controls the cooling fans, so they're not on until the internal temperature of this case reaches, I think, 25 or 26. We'll probably see it in a minute. Rotate again. Overheat stop. So if the internal temperature of the case reaches 35 degrees, it'll obviously switch the case off. This is adjustable. I've had a couple of, I had one a couple of years ago that contacted me and said, oh, how can I up this temperature? And I said, oh, is there a problem? And he goes, no, I just live in Australia and it's very hot. So he had to put that up, and indeed an ice meter I sold not too long ago. Again, same, totally slipped my mind. It went to Australia and the ambient temperature over there was already about 34, 35 degrees. So he had to increase this point. So anyway, that's quite good. So we'll move on. There we go. I've got the fans coming on at 26 degrees, and as per the ice meter video, they'll come on at 26 when the internal temperature of the case reaches 26. They'll go off when it drops by 3 degrees and then stay off again until the temperature comes up to 26, at which point then the cycle continues. So we'll scroll around again. Max current, it can go up to 100 with the... actually, no, tell a lie. I'm not using the 100 amp power supplies. I need to change that. These are the 60 amp power supplies in here because that's more than enough for this charger. So that's the max current 85. I'm going to drop that down to 60. If obviously the idea being, if it went above that as a safety precaution, it would then switch off the two power supplies. Minimum current, this is the one that controls the LED. So basically at 0.8 of an amp or below, the LEDs are green, as you can see here. If current draw then goes above 0.8 of an amp, the LEDs then obviously do their cycling, where they cycle through the various colours and stuff. And if there's a fault, they'll then turn red. So there's another... not only a safety thing there, but a visual indication there, which is quite good. OVP point, over voltage protection. If the voltage coming out of the combined power supplies goes above 28 volts, both units are shut off. UVP, under voltage. If one of the power supplies fails, which is the known killer for iCharger duos, if the combined voltage then drops to 23.5, 23.55 according to the screen, both power supplies are turned off and the charger then just sits there idly, so that avoids damage to the charger. Go around again, current, oh yeah, there you go. We all see the charger sat in idle, and the USB port, and potentially I suppose the LEDs, we're only pulling 0.15 of an amp. And then back to V1 and V2. The ice meter then, I think a lot of you guys who've watched my other videos seen this before, the 3D printed holder for it, which is again sub flush, so the knob is flush with the top of the deck. The idea being, once we do then put the build in the lid, which I haven't designed yet, but I've already got a design for, so I might just play around with a couple of the slot positions to allow for slightly bigger or smaller units. Oh, that went out of focus. Any leads up there then won't interfere then with a control knob, and of course the charger is sub flush by 5mm. You can just about see that by the thickness of the material. And then if I go back to the USB, there you go. These USB ports can be powered off the 12 volt or the 24 volts, but in this case it was easy for me just to run the 2 single wires up from the first power supply to give it 12 volts. No point letting it work too hard for unnecessary reason when it's got to drop 12 volts to 5 or 9 even, I suppose, if it's quick charge. I think quick charge can go up to 9 volts off the top of my head. And there we go. So this one's done. I must admit, I am quite partial to the colour orange in general. So I do like these cases. I can quickly pan around actually and show you my very naughty chiller there. And there's the offending pump, which is now dead. Luckily the carpet's dried, but yeah, so until I get the pump ready, the laser, which is under there, is currently out of action. Anyway, back to this. There's the cardboard box. It's going in a minute. Back to the case. Yeah, not much else to see, I'm afraid. I'll switch it off. There we go. Close the lid. Turn it round. And say thank you very much from me, Ian at Coolice Charge Cases. Thank you for watching my videos. Please like, share, subscribe. And if you're in need of a charge case, give us a shout. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.